Okay, Vino Adonai Eloheinu Aleinu Ma'aseh Adenu Konina Aleinu Ma'aseh Adenu Koneu. We're going to continue with our shiur in Shaare Orah. I'd like to dedicate the shiur today, Leilun Shmat, my mother-in-law, Hatun Hana Bat Mazal Miriam, Ruach Adonai Tenechem Began Eden. Her yard site is today. May her neshamash have aliyah. Okay, so we're continuing on the book Shaare Orah, and we're on page Kof Tzadi Dalid, and we're on the below the on the third paragraph where the word starts ulafi. Ulafi derech ze yesh chalit bonen ki arotze lira. Oh, I just wanted to the word last week that I wasn't sure about. The word is miskena. That means ani. So it said over there, and what we said before, shata the kucha brichu rahim le lebarnash misader le dorona. When Hashem, when kucha brichu has love or on the person and basically prepares to give them a gift, my ihu, what's the gift? Maskina, which ani. What is the ultimate gift to a tzaddik?
Well, he's going to share everything anyway.
So he already has the bracha. He has the bracha. But what we said before, if you have nobody to give the bracha to, then you're not able to transmit that bracha. So what Hashem does when he wants to give the tzaddik, a righteous person, wants to give him doron, wants to give him a gift, what does he give him? He gives him an ani that comes to ask for. Exactly. So that's the dorona, which is a miskana, which is an ani, which is a person who's in need. Because unless, again, from a Kabbalistic point of view, unless there's a keli, there's no transmission of the or. There has to be a or and a keli. Otherwise, what makes any world a world? What makes the concept of olam? Or and keli. Once there's or and keli, then there is olam. Until there's a keli, there's no olam. Okay? There's no world. All right, let's continue in the bottom. A person who wants to inherit Eretz HaChaim. What's Eretz HaChaim? The land of the life. What's the land of the life? So we'll see what this is shortly. Tzarich lihidabek b'midat tzaddik. He has to attach himself to the midah of the tzaddik, which is the yesod, right? Kichol hadavek b'midat tzaddik nikra tzaddik al shemo. Anyone who attaches himself to this midah, to this sphira of the yesod, right? He's called a tzaddik, right? V'nochel eretz hachaim, and he inherits the world of the living. V'alzen emar, and this is what it says: Ve'amech kulam tzaddikim leolam yirshu e'aretz. From Yeshaya, right? It says, and your nation are all righteous; forever they will inherit the land. Ukvar yadata, and you already know ma shedarshu bo chazal, what our rabbis would doresh, what our rabbis explained. What our rabbis explained. Kol Yisrael yeshem chelik lam haba. Every Jew has a portion in the world to come. Yes? Where do they learn it from? From the pasuk we just quoted from Yeshaya. Shne'emar ve'amek kulam tzadikim leolam yirshu aretz. So what is the aretz that's referred to in that pasuk? It's the Eretz HaChaim. What's the Eretz HaChaim? That's Olam Haba. So how does a person inherit the Olam Haba? By attaching himself to the midah of the tzaddik. Okay? All right, let's see on the bottom. Harotzeh lirash Eretz HaChaim. A person who wants to inherit the Eretz HaChaim. Miva'er Rabbeinu shekfi ma'aseh adam. Our rabbi is explaining that according to the behavior or the actions of the person, lemata, in this world, zocher lehanhaga elyona lemala. Precisely the way a person operates in this world is the way he's operated on in the world to come. Continue on. The rakmi shenidbach b'midat tzaddik, only someone who has attached themselves to the midah of the tzaddik, yoresh olam haba, inherits the world to come. Dichtiv amek kulam tzaddikim leolam yirshu aretz, which means what? The way a person inherits the world to come is they are tzaddik. Now, how does it work? The amek kulam tzaddikim. Your nation are all righteous. So, in the Zohar, another place it says that when a boy receives his brit milah, nikra tzaddik. Now we understand the deeper meaning to that, because when he has the Brit Milah, now that's the tzaddik represents the yesod, which is the member itself, and then the exposure of the crown, that is called the malchut, right? Well, what does it mean nikrat tzaddik? Because now he has a big mitzvah, no avonot. Until he's 13 years old, the boy doesn't have any avonot. So for the entire first 13 years of his life, minus the first 8 days, what is he? He has a big mitzvah. It's called.
Isn't it like until he's like 20?
Okay, that's from Olam Hazeh. Olam Haba, it doesn't count until the person is 20. A person is not punished until 20. But we understand that what? Since for those first 13 years, he only has a mitzvah, he has no avonot, right? Therefore, nikra tzaddik. Okay, let's continue on. Tzaddik moshech le'eretz hi sfirat malchut. Because what does the tzaddik do? Is moshech le'eretz. It's the tzaddik. What does he do? He gives influence on the aretz. What is the aretz? That's sfirat malchut. The aretz represents the sfirat malchut. Shemisham nehenim ba'olam haba. And from there, now that aretz, malchut is olam hazeh. There's malchut olam, and there's malchut in the shamayim. We have two. We have malchut in the world. We have malchut in the shamayim. Yes. And just like we have in every one of the sfirot, in every one of the olamot, the last of the sfirot is the malchut, which is the keter of the world that's below. Right? Okay. And this is where how a person in the world to come is nehene miziva shechina. Gets benefit from the ziv, the shine of the Shekhinah. Shefa hachayim misfirat habina, and the abundance of life, the influence, the influence of life from the sfirah of the bina. So what do we mean here? Remember, there's two sfirot that are feminine. One is the malchut, and one is the bina. Malchut represents the world, right? And the Binah is what's ultimately distributing to all of the Zer Anpin, which then distributes to the Malchut, okay? So when a person goes to Olam Haba, it says, the Rambam says, what happens in Olam Haba? Tzadikim, interesting, Tzadikim yoshvim. What does it mean yoshvim? They sit. What does it mean sit? Nice idea from the word yeshiva. But why is learning done by yeshiva? In order for a person to study, what's needed? And in order to be able to concentrate, what's needed? Yeshuva dat. Very good. A person has to be relaxed. A person can't be distracted by other things, right? In order to focus on one's learning, if a person is doeg, worrying all the time about their parnasah, right? To the level which is, let's say, not normal, but maybe pathologic, they can't learn. And why are they doeg on their parnasah so much? Why are they so worried? Because they don't have enough yirat shamayim. So once again, the gate, like we talked about, is aleph, daled, nun, yud. That's the way in. When a person has yirat shamayim, what does he recognize? I'm going to dedicate in the morning a half an hour to learn. I'm going to dedicate in the evening an hour or a half an hour to learn. And nothing else in the world is going to bother me at that point. I am completely focused on my learning. Who has the greatest yishuv da'at? Where is the person relaxed the most? When you tell someone to rest in peace, what does that mean? So we understand when a person is resting in peace, when a person dies, they're ultimately having the greatest yishuv da'at because they're no longer involving themselves in matters of this world. Hopefully, when they go to the next world, it's a good place. It's a place for them that's good, not a place for them, even if it's not so good. Hopefully, it's only temporary. So that's why it says in the Torah, in Parashat Chukat, Zot Torah Adam ki yamut be'ohel. What does that mean? Zot Torah Adam ki yamut be'ohel. In here?
told us to move in here.
Who told you?
Kevin.
Can you ask Kevi to come here? Because we have a regular class here every single. There's no other place to have minyan?
No, because they have a class in there.
All right, we're going to go into the boardroom. Okay, we'll pick this up shortly. Musical chairs over here.
I'll check. Hey, Steve.
Yeah, I saw.
We can't go in there, Rabbi.
What's that?
The door is locked. The kids are out there dancing. And I don't know. So what we can do is, let's see, maybe we can try the social one.
All right, you want to check? I'll go check. Get him a book. Yeah.
Du guys on a minute now?
Yeah.
Oh. Like, lo sai la vita, L'hai fatto.
Sam, give me a hand.
Where are we heading?
I don't know. Steve's going to have to find out where we're heading.
Sounds good. Maybe the.
One thing about Ashkenazim, they're supposed to be organized. Any luck?
Rabbi, listen, the minion just finished up over there.
Yeah.
We can go and check
Social
it out.
hall. Okay.
Social hall. We used to learn in here. We have to bring some chairs in if you want.
Is there air conditioning?
It seems
Doesn't-
a little, maybe
seems a little hot.
warm. You feel warm in here?
Yeah, let's go to social.
What about Rand?
What about?
Rand.
I don't know.
Right there, the women's section.
What do you think? The women's section. Oh, the women's section.
Yeah, this seems okay, no? And why is it
He was talking about the women's section.
And why is it 10 o'clock minyan out in here?
I don't know.
Can you explain that to me?
Listen. We get degraded all the time. Just so you know, it's Sephardic minion,
Well,
even though we're paying
it's
the
our own
rent and
fault.
everything.
It's our own
Here's what
fault.
goes on.
It's our own fault.
When I'm not on the board, when I was on the board, there used to be all kinds of stuff with this. All right.
Because we're looking for a discount.
Believe me, I'm just telling you right now, they are the Ashkenazim are tough, and they're not giving any discounts on you right now. I was the one advocating for this. I was advocating during the pandemic when we didn't have full use and everything. It was like you can't move those guys. I know Hetty was saying that.
So if you can't move the mountain, you move to another mountain.
Well, we're not leaving the shul, what are you going to do?
At the end of the
Look,
day,
it's not so bad. But I think shul is a good idea. I bet you
there's two 10 o'clock minyanim. Stop.
I don't think people realize.
Who's in charge?
Well, it's not.
Who made that decision?
It's not the Sephardic over there.
No. Who made that decision? You want to work on that? I got stuff.
There should be the social. All right, we'll do that.
Yeah, because I know you guys need these classes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Maybe it's not so bad after all.
All right. Guys, this minion is going to be in the social hall now. Which made the change.
Sorry about that. Sam, you didn't bring the books, did you? Could you? Thank you. No, we didn't lose anything because as far as the video is concerned, it's going to pick up right away. We lost a little bit, I guess. You're right. Thank you so much. So Habib didn't move at all. He's still good where he is. See that? Hatzlacha. Have a good day. Have a good day. Thank you so much. Listen, Cohen comes to pray with us. We'll give you work to do. You know that, right?
Uh-oh. Yeah?
Yeah, we do it every day.
Yeah, that's right.
Come on. We'd love to have you.
Okay.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Hezbollah propaganda chief in Lebanon.
What's that?
We knocked off Hezbollah's propaganda chief.
Excellent. Oh, thank you, Sam. I forgot my bag also. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. All right. Diskelem mitzvot. Thank you so much. Yeah, right there's fine. Okay. Not yet. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that small interruption. So we were discussing about the concept of when a person passes away, we say they rest in peace, yes? So what does it mean to yeshiva? It means in a situation of rest, yes? So why is learning done b'yeshiva? Because a person is supposed to have yishuv da'at, a person is supposed to be relaxed so that they can focus on learning. So it says in the Torah, Zota Torah Adam ki yamut be'ohel. This is the Torah when a person dies in the tent. And our rabbis learn now, what does it mean Zota Torah Adam ki yamut be'ohel? In order for the Torah to be mitkayem, be able to be within a person, they have to be willing to die in the tent for it. Now, what does that mean to die? So some people say, the Ragma says, memit et atzmo, cause himself to suffer, which means Torah is not acquired with on a beach with your legs crossed with a martini in your hand and a book in the other hand. That's not how a person acquires the Torah. The way the Torah is acquired is through a level of difficulty, suffering. But there's another idea. What does it mean? When a person is dead, we say in English, they're dead to the world, right? When a person is alive, we can say they're dead to the world. Meaning what? Then no matter what's going on in the world, doesn't make a difference. This person is focused on learning. So when the person has an appointment once every, hopefully twice a day, the Agita Bo Yomam V'Layla has an appointment for learning, nothing spoils that appointment. And during that half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, when he's dedicated to learning the Torah, the phone is off on the side. Whether the world is falling apart doesn't make a difference. He's involved in his learning, which means he's dead to the world. That's the idea. So the concept of yeshiva is a state of relaxation, and that's the same thing in the world to come. What is tzadikim yoshvim, which means they are in a state of relaxation, right? Unlike Gehenam, which is not exactly a state of relaxation, that's a state of lack of relaxation, yes? All right? And nehenim miziva shechina. And then neheneh, they get benefit, they get pleasure from the shine of the shechina. Okay? So that's what it says. So he's now explaining that, what this means. Okay, so at tzaddik moshech la'aretz, the tzaddik draws to the aretz or gives over to the aretz, sfirat malchut, which is the sfirat malchut, shemisham nehenim ba'olam haba, that from the malchut they receive benefit in the world to come. Continuing on, we have the concept of tachat kanfei shechina, underneath the knafayim of the shechina, right? The wings. He's going to say something shortly about that he doesn't like. Kanfei shechina, the wings of the shechina, right? But technically, from the way he's wording it here, where is the soul of the righteous? The soul of the righteous is not below the malchut. The soul of the righteous, where is the yitzror b'tzror hachayim? The concept is tiyeh nishmatot tzrura b'tzror hachayim. Let his soul be bundled up in the bundle of life. What is the bundle of life? That's the binah. Tzror hachayim is the binah. So a person gets, ultimately, all the shefa that comes from the malchut is coming from higher up. No, you're thinking about the world. Yechidah. That's a world. That's the highest world, which we don't really have any knowledge about at all or understanding.
Isn't there a name for that bundle? Is a name for that? I mean, there's levels of the soul, above.
If you want to show me, I'll learn it. We'll talk about it.
I don't remember. I know there was something.
Tzror hachayim is really the binah. The binah is a bundle of life. Okay, let's continue on. He's going to say this later on in the book. So he's receiving the shefa chayim from the sfira of the binah. That's what he's saying here. Tiyeh nishmatot tzura b'tzura chayim. That's a pasuk from the Tanakh. That is, let his soul be tzura, bundled up in the bundle of life. Right? Okay. Ayen le'el she'esod nikra Elohim chayim. See above that the yesod is called Elohim Hayim, the living God. Yes? Moshech HaChayim min HaChochma, draws down the Chayim from the Chochma, the Binah, Hanikraim Chayim, because Chochma and Binah are called Hayim. They give life. They're Mehayeh. They give sustenance. Umi shelo shomer habrit. And a person who is not careful with his Brit Milah. What does that mean? We discussed this morning, right? Having relations with Goya. That's an example of a person who's not properly watching his brit. The way the Zohar words it, he puts the chotemet, he puts the signature of Hashem in a place of tum'ah. So it's very serious, even though from the, what's that? The or in, not just the keli of the other side, shall we say. He's putting the or in the keli of the tum'ah, of not the keli of the tahara, right? Now, a person, of course, to make teshuvah, for anything like we discussed this morning, teshuvah is always open, yes, but a person has to recognize the seriousness. And when a person studies the pshat, the halacha, we don't appreciate enough the seriousness of it. Well, of course, we discussed this morning that a person who is living with a Gentile woman or a man or a Jewish woman living with a Gentile man, that is isur doraita. That's an isur from the Torah, and they get lashes for that, yes? Except for Kohen, who gets lashes with every relations. That's a separate issue, right? But just a one-time relation with Goya, as far as the Torah is concerned, is not asur. The rabbis then made it asur because when you have relations once, it leads to other things. But if you look at the approach of the Zohar or the Kabbalah, it's very, very serious even one time, okay? Which means a person has to be doing teshuvah. Shomer Abrit, also Shomer Abrit is making sure a person doesn't have Shichvat Zera Lavatala. That's another example of Shmirat Abrit. Anyway, we'll... What? Spilling seed for no reason. Not in the proper place. No, nocturnal emission, that's without ratzon. That's because a person didn't have proper thoughts during the day. That's a separate issue, right? But to do this purposely, that's in the Zohar. It's a very big problem, shall we say? You have to do tshuva because you probably had thoughts during the day that weren't appropriate. That's why you had the shichvat zera in that situation wasn't. It was anus. He was correct. All right, so that means it's clearly that the person's eyes weren't properly focused on the right things during the day, which allowed them to come to carry at night. There are exceptions to that. The Gemara talks about when a person is traveling, there's more likely to have. There's exceptions. There are things that are just whatever, that are not necessarily because the person saw something, did something bad. Yirmiyahu, we know he had the Gemara talks about a boy whose name was Ben Sirah. Ben Sirah. How we translate that into English? Son of the bathtub. Sirah is a bathtub also in Aramaic. Okay? What's that? Sorry? Yeah, he wrote a book, The Wisdom of Ben Sirah. It's not part of our canon. It's a part of their canon. It has no Kedusha as far as we're concerned. But there's a book. And Ben Sirah, the Gemara says, was the son of Yirmiyahu. How does that work? Yirmiyahu was in a bathtub and he had a seminal emission, not purposely, obviously. Maybe he fell asleep. I don't know the whole story there. And then a woman right away came in and she went to bathe also, and she became pregnant from that. That's why it's called Ben Sirah, the son of the bathtub.
We don't know if medically that's possible.
It is exceedingly impossible.
It may be impossible.
You said that seed is viable for 3 days based on.
Only when it's in the right place.
Yeah, in the right place. So, once it's in water, there's soap in there.
Especially with chlorine and stuff, I don't know. But they did. But clearly this is it never discussed again. So it's a once situation. And most of the rabbis who do the halachot of in vitro fertilization, they will quote when they're doing the teshuvah this maisa in the Gemara, because it's how they based on this maisa. We see that there's a concept of this in Chazal. Yeah, let them add it to that canon. That's okay. The rabbis on Shnei Kazak Dolah didn't think that the book had any spiritual validity. Which books were put into the Tanakh? I'm not saying Ben Sirah has any kfirah inside, although I've never read it, so I don't know that for sure. There was some discussions about books like Kohelet, Shir HaShirim. Almost didn't make it. The rabbis didn't want to put it in. Right? Why didn't they want to put Kohelet in? Because it's a book full of contradictions. If a person understands it at its surface value, it's full of contradictions. Right? At one point it says life is good, and then further says Hevel Havelim Ekol Havel. So how do we understand? So a person has to study the book. They felt it was risky for regular people to study this book because it might bring them to contradiction. They put the book in. Shir HaShirim, what was the problem with Shir HaShirim? What do we have in the Torah? A love story between a man and a woman. So at the baseline value, the pshat of Shir HaShirim is what? It's all. It sounds like it doesn't belong in the Tanakh, but we understand that Shir HaShirim is Kodesh Kodashim according to Rabbi Akiva. Why? Because Shir HaShirim is really discussing the relationship between Yisrael and Hashem. Hashem is the Baal and Yisrael is the Kala. When you understand that in that context and all the different remazim and all the hints in Shir HaShirim, then you understand that Shir HaShirim is Kodesh Kodashim. The Ben Ish Chai has a whole book explaining Shir HaShirim from the point of the Sod. Okay, so these books were included. Other books were not included. For instance, there were probably other writings, but the only prophecies that were included in the Tanakh, right? Yeshaya, he lived for many years. Hopefully we have all of his prophecies, but some of the prophets are very, very small. Do you mean to tell me that, well, maybe Yonah, we know, didn't have any prophecy after Ninveh. Once Ninveh was done, he was finished. That was his prophetic career was over. But we don't know about other prophets. Maybe Ovadiah. Why does he only have one chapter? Where did we read about Ovadiah this past Haftarah? Haftarah Vayera. There was a woman, it says that she had a lot of debts. And the debt collectors came to collect her children because she wasn't able to pay the debts. what doesn't tell you what the debts were. What were the debts? Her husband, Ovadia, was basically feeding the prophets. And when he ran out of his own money to feed the prophets, he basically borrowed money to feed the prophets. Because Izebel, the Risha'it, who was the wife of Ahav from Malchei Yisrael, Izebel was killing all the prophets. So, when you don't like the message of the prophet, the simplest thing to do is to kill the prophet. Then they can't talk anymore, yes? So what happened is he hid them and he protected them. Ovadia was a convert. He was from Edom. He was a convert to Judaism, okay? And he was in the palace. He was close to the Malchut. So he, underneath Izebel's nose, was protecting the prophets. What happened? He died and he left his wife with a huge debt. So we know the whole miracle that happened, right? What was the miracle that happened? With oil, correct, which is never ran out. But what was necessary? A keli. No keli, no or. And she had to have at least one keli of her own. Then she borrowed other kelim. And when did the shefa stop? When all the kelim were full, right? That's how she was able to pay the debts. And what happened to that woman? Later, as you read the Haftarah, it talks about something else. Choveket ben. There's a prophecy that came from Elisha that in the next year, that's why we read it, Bashana Acheret, the next year, just like Sarah was promised that she's going to have a son. That's why we read this Haftarah and other reasons as well. And so what do we say? At Choveket ben. Who was that son? Habakkuk. Why was he called Habakkuk? Choveket ben. His name was Habakkuk. He was the result of that prophecy. So at Choveket ben, and he was Habakkuk, which is the one she was Choveket.
He ended up dying and then he ended up bringing him back to life.
This is the child that he said Roshi, and then Elisha came and brought him back to life. So we have a small snippet of the Haftarah here, but there's a story before and there's a story afterwards.
Without knowing the context, I had no idea.
Lost. I only gave a class for an hour and 50 minutes yesterday. There was no time to talk more about the Haftarah. Okay, so continue on. So we see that's the special, right? And what else I want to say about that? Okay, leave it alone for now. Okay, let's continue on inside. So we understand Adzota Torah Adam ki emut be'ohel. A person, if every single time he's checking his phone to see what kind of emails he's getting while he's learning, and the same thing, by the way, goes by davening. Okay, if a person is always checking their phone while they're davening, how are they focusing on the davening? How are they focusing on the tefillah? A person has a time to devote to God. And when one devotes that time to God, everything else except the pikuach nefesh should be excluded. Okay? If a person is not excluding everything, what is that a marker of? Insufficient yirat shamayim. Right? Person yirat shamayim is going to say, listen, I'm in Bet Knesset right now. There's nothing, short of pikuach nefesh. Why am I looking at my phone? Right? And especially during learning. Davening is also, but learning is even more. Why is learning more than davening? Davening is also, no, neither of them are voluntary. They're both obligatory. Why is learning higher than davening?
That's a one-way sikha between Hashem and you. And davening is no official time frame for learning.
Okay, so, but from the Torah's perspective, there's no official time for davening either.
You learn right, you're davening.
There's no shiur on learning.
There's no shiur on learning. There's no shiur on davening. The Gemara says, halavai, a person should be praying all day.
Then you'll have a situation.
You're not getting it right. Why? How do I know? How can I prove to you that learning is less than limud Torah? Keneged kulam, very good. Doesn't say that about tefillah. Okay, what else? The Gemara discusses in Masechet Brachot, there are mitzvot that are, in the eyes of people, very light, and people are mizalzel. They don't take those mitzvot very seriously. The Gemara discussed that from a pasuk, Kirum Zulut Livnei Adam, which is what we read if I'm mistaken on Shmini Atzeret, right? Kirum Zulut Livnei Adam. There are mitzvot that are at the kerom, very, very high, that are people are mizalzel, zulut from the language of mizalzel. So the Gemara doesn't discuss, but Rashi writes on, Kigon Tefillah. So what do we learn from here? There are things omdim berumo shel olam. What does rumo shel olam mean? At the heights of the world, but it's still within the world. Torah is not within the world. Torah is above the world. Torah is the shemini, is the eighth. Tefillah is part of the world. Torah is me'en, it's from the olam haba. So therefore, Torah is higher than Tefillah. There's another pasuk that people should pay attention to. Sometimes, people are davening and then there's a shir afterwards. It's one thing if a person has a specific business thing, they got to take care of that once in a while, I'm not saying. But there are people regularly that always will run away from a shir of Torah, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes. Baruch Hashem, we do our Torah in the middle of the davening, so no one's going anywhere, right? But there's some synagogues, they have a shir Torah right after davening, and the person never stays. Even on Sunday, he doesn't stay. What's the problem? We have a pasuk. Mesir ozno mishemoa Torah gam tefilato to'eva. Translate. A person who turns his ear from listening to Torah, also his tefillah is to'eva, abomination. What's the also? His tefillah is an abomination, and he's behaving in an abominable type of way. So if we understand, now there's a time for tefillah, there's no question about it. Unless you happen to be Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, with that level of study, that level of commitment, he's patur from tefillah. He's patur from kriyat shema. Right? A person who is Torah's umanuto, Torah is his trade, which means that's all they do. That's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the classic case of that the Gemara brings, right? He's patur from mitzvot because Talmud Torah keneged kulam. What does it mean keneged kulam? Ha'osek b'mitzvah patur b'mitzvah. Now, no one today is like that. Let's just get that straight. They may think they are, and they're not. Okay, so if there was a person like that, then he'd be patur from Torah, patur from Kriyat Shema. We understand the level of the Torah. Nowadays, especially now, there's nobody that's really in that level with Torah's umanuto to that level. So then you stop. Why? Because tefillah is a mitzvah overet, and Torah you can still learn all day. So since midrabanan tefillah has a time, when a person is involved in learning Torah, yes, and now comes the time of the tefillah, you stop the learning in order to pray. Why? Because Torah is not our business. We have lots of other businesses that we do, whether they're income generating or not, okay? We're not that level of devotion to Torah. So therefore, now we have a mitzvah aseh from the Torah that is passing time, and Torah can pick up afterwards. So therefore, you stop the Torah learning in order to pray. Or any mitzvah aseh. The exception, of course, is avelut, which we read in this morning. Well, Chaye Sarah, the mitzvah of burying a dead person, that takes precedence over everything.
What do you give a quick halacha shiur in between the chazarat, after chazarat hashatz, and
We talked to halacha right after chazara, right after. Right. So what about that?
why isn't that an interruption?
Okay, that's different. That's a place you can interrupt. Okay.
During davening.
And it's not. You're not. Okay. When we say tefillah, what are we talking about? Shemona Esrei. That's it. That's tefillah. Everything else is a preparation before and a preparation afterwards, right? Tefillah is Shemona Esrei.
So you do that so everyone fulfills their Torah learning.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Other synagogues, they save the learning for the end. Now, a synagogue that saves the learning for the end, as long as people are not regularly leaving, it's not a problem. But otherwise, if people are always running out all the time, and people are leaving, again, I'm not talking about, on a once in a while type of thing. People sometimes have business, they have to catch a flight. It is what it is, right? But you have people who regularly will turn off their ears or walk out when this is what it's tefilatot to'eva.
That's their halacha. I'm out of here.
That's their halacha. Rabbi Hananya, that's the Torah they know is Rabbi Hananya ben Akat Shomer. That they're an expert at, yes? Okay? And be very careful when you come into a shiur. Again, we want to start prayer on time. I'm not saying that. Don't be the one that ends the class. Unless you're the Va'ad. Don't be the one that says, if you're not the Va'ad, sit down, keep your mouth shut, and wait. Hopefully the class will be a minute or two. It's not the end of the world. Okay, let's continue on. So we're talking about Eretz HaChaim, right? So continue on here. Ve'ochez b'midat hatzadik. One second. Umisha lo shomer habrit, and a person who's not careful with the Brit Milah. Ve'ochez b'midat hatzadik, and he's trying to grab the midah of the tzaddik. What's the problem? It's what we call in the Gemara Tarte de Satre. How can a person be thinking they're going to be tzaddik and grabbing onto the midah of tzaddik, and at the same time not being shomer abrit? Everybody got that? So he says, "En lo chelek l'olam haba." That's what it says here. He has no portion in the world to come. Ki kikel ve'avad et hakesher l'olam ha'chaim ha'elyonim. Because when a person is not shomer abrit, what's happening? He's destroying the sign, he's destroying the kesher, the connection for the world of life, for the world of Chaim HaElyonim, which is, of course, the Chokhmah and the Binah. Kedita bazohar, like it's taught in the Zohar, in Parshat Noach. Kol yisal yeshem chelek l'olam haba, mai ta'ama. What's the reason? That's not the way it is for the Gentiles. Gentiles don't have a default that they have a portion in the world to come. They have to earn that portion in the world to come. A Jew is born and has chelek l'olam haba. Certain behaviors a Jew does, they can lose chelek l'olam haba. Okay? So the Zohar asks, "My ta'ama." What's the reason why kol yisrael yeshem chelek l'olam haba? Biglal shehem shomrim habrit. Wow. So when it says tzadikim, right? Ve'amech kulam tzadikim. What is the Zohar saying? What does it mean to be a tzadik? Shomer abrit. Sha'olam mitkayem aleha, because the world exists because of the Brit Milah. There was one particular very famous prophet that was punished because he said the Jewish people are not shomer brit. They're not doing Brit Milah. Eliyahu Hanavi. God said, "Oh yeah? Well, let me show you. From now on, you got to go to every Brit Milah." How do we know that there are Jews right now that are Shomer HaBrit? How can you prove to me right now that there are Jews that are Shomer HaBrit? Because the world exists. It says, "Imlo beriti yomam v'layla chukot shamayim va'aretz lo samti." If not for my covenant, day and night, the rules, the physics of the world, chukot shamayim va'aretz lo samti, which means if there is a violation totally by the Jewish people of the Brit, then there is no world. There's two meanings. What is the Brit? There's two Brit we're talking about here. One is Brit Milah. And what's the other Brit? Huh? What's the language? Torah is called Brit Melach.
Torah is water and it's fire.
Ah, it's Brit Melach. What is unique about Melach? Melach, first of all, is inexpensive. It's very, very cheap. Even with inflation, Biden inflation, what's salt now? $2 for a thing of Morton salt used to be 80 cents, okay? It's cheap, and it lasts for a very long time. Melech has another quality. What else does it do? It preserves. What does the Torah do? Preserves. How do we see that? Prove to me the Torah is a preservative. What more? Hitalechecha. Hitanheotach. Beshoch becha. Hitishmor alecha. V'akitzota hitesihecha. When do we say that? Right after a siyum of a Masechet of Gemara. It's a pasuk. What does the pasuk mean? When you're walking along the way, she will guide you. While you're alive, you don't need preservative, like we discussed yesterday. Ever minachai, right? Why do they want to rip a limb off an animal? Because then there's a preservative. By the fact that the animal's alive, the animal doesn't die, even though it suffers tremendously. The Torah says, even goyim, you can't do this. When you want to eat a limb you want to eat meat, you have to shech the animal and figure out what you're going to do with all the extra, right? Before refrigeration and freezing and stuff like that. So the preservative is in the life. The Torah is a guide. What about in death? B'shoch becha. What is b'shoch becha in that pasuk? It doesn't mean when you go to sleep. It means when a person rests in peace. When a person rests in peace forever, right? He tishmor alecha. What is the concept of shmirah? Preserve. She will preserve you. Ve'akitzota hi tesihecha. What does that mean? And when you wake up, she will speak for you. And that's why the Gemara asks an amazing question. In the Tchiyat HaMetim, there are a few mitzvot that get a person to the Tchiyat HaMetim. One of them is Talmud Torah. So the Gemara frets the kasha. What's the kasha? In what merit do women inherit the world to come? Which means Tchiyat HaMetim. If Talmud Torah is the category that a person earns, women are peturot from Talmud Torah. That's the conclusion. It says, by taking their children to school and by allowing their husbands to learn, that is how they have a portion in the Torah, which means that's what gets them Tchiyat HaMetim. Now, that doesn't mean they shouldn't study on their own halachot, but Talmud Torah is only for men.
The schar of women, it's two separate things. Olam haba.
Okay, so Olam Haba has two meanings. Olam Haba is not straightforward. There's Olam, I'll be more specific for my terminology. There's Olam HaNeshamot, which vis-a-vis this world is the Olam Haba. Yes? Because when a person finishes his time in this world and his body goes into the kever, the neshama goes to the waiting place, to the storage house, right? Which is either Gehenam for a short period of time and then Gan Eden, yes? But that's not the ultimate. The ultimate is Olam HaTechiyah. And if you think about it, when a person gets to the Olam Haba for this world, which is the Olam HaNeshamot, what is the Olam Haba and the Olam HaNeshamot? The Olam HaTechiyah. Of course.
So how does growth, which is physical, how does that relate to spiritual? Just neshama?
I'm not sure the question. So Tchiyat HaMetim, we agree, is body and soul together, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, otherwise, what's the difference between the resurrection of the dead and the world of the souls?
It could be a separate time period.
Yeah, of course, it's a separate time period, but it's after. We would agree, once there is Tchiyat HaMetim, there is no more spiritual Gan Eden. There is a physical Gan Eden. It's returning Adam HaRishon back before the sin. So that's why you have to be careful in the terminology. Rambam says clearly, right? The Olam Haba that has no body and has no whatever, it's tzadikim yoshvim. And the Ravid has a big problem with this. He said, what are you talking about? What do you mean there's no body in the world to come? Of course there's a body in the world to come. What's their machloket? They both are not. If a person doesn't believe Tchiyat Mitim, he's no Chalak Olam Haba. So what's the machloket? The machloket is the Ravid is looking at Olam Haba as Olam HaTechiyah. The Rambam, when he's talking about Olam Haba, in that context, is talking about Olam HaNeshamot. That's the machloket. It resolves when you understand that they're talking about two different states. The Gemara has a story. It likens a story. It's a story that is this: that you have a guy who owns a orchard, an apple orchard, and he wants to make sure that someone is going to watch the orchard, but he doesn't want them to steal from him. So what does he do? If he gets one person, that person is going to take apples while he's working. So what does he do? He brings a blind man and a lame man, right? And says the blind man will basically be able to see when someone's coming in and doesn't belong, and the lame man will be able to get to there and get rid of him. So what happens? So he thought this is a great thing. What is that happens? The blind man got on top of the lame man's back, and basically they ate the apples. So the guy comes back and he says, "What happened to my orchard?" He didn't realize. What's this? What's the nimshal? The nimshal is what? How? Let's say a person goes to Olam Haba. I'm talking about Olam HaNeshamot. Where's the body? In the kever, in the ground. Yes, decomposing. Yes, but zelo fair. Why is zelo fair? How did the neshama get to the world of the neshamot? Through doing mitzvot and maasim tovim. There is no way to do mitzvot and maasim tovim if a person doesn't have a body. The method is hofshim min mitzvot. So the body is an integral part in achieving olam haba. So the ultimate justice, the tikkun, the correction is the body and soul reunite in this world. Now, I'm not going to say it's the same world as we have now. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We don't have a good, but the body is a different body. It doesn't mean it looks different. We don't know how it looks. Women, when I give this class, always say, well, what am I going to look like? Maybe Hashem allows you to pick what age. I never hear men really ask that question, but women always say, how old am I going to be when I come back? I said, at least 20. How's that? Okay, then that's acceptable to them. Maybe they get to choose. Maybe the Hashem gives, okay, how old do you want to be when you come back? Listen, at 20 years old, you're stupid. At least, when you're like Kamala Harris said, like she said, so people who are young are stupid, right? There's an advantage to being older. Forgive me. You get wisdom, yes? But youth has vigor and all that stuff. So there's a balance, but the men don't. I've never heard a man say, well, how old am I going to be when I come back? I don't think it makes a difference. And the whole concept of age, why is the whole concept of old makes no sense? Prove it to me from this week's parasha coming. Stop. That was last week.
Oh, we said it.
Oh, sorry, it was 126.
She looked like 20.
Stop. That's Rashi. Come on. I want a pasuk. Ve'Avraham zaken ba bayamim v'Adonai berach et Avraham bakol. What does that mean, Ve'Avraham zaken? He was old. Yes? When is the word zaken used before that time in the Torah? Never. Where's where?
This last week's.
Okay, but she doesn't mean zaken. I became older, which means chadaliyat. Very nice. That's a good idea. The Gemara. That's a good question. The Talmud. Think about that. The Talmud says from here we learn what the first person to show age was Avraham. That's why Sarah was the same as she was when she was 100 as she was same as 20. Beyofya. Yes, that's what it says. Why? Because people didn't age.
She went back to her youth. Her body, right?
Is that physical or is that internal? Yeah, the problem is there's another. The Talmud says that Sarah. Someone asked this question last week. V'sarai eshet Avram akara en la valad. What does it mean? So the Gemara says our rabbis teach us what? Akara en la valad. What does that mean? She had no bet valad. Well, if she has no womb, how is she having a period? Hadaliyat l'sara Orah kanashim.
Means she had it from the beginning.
So what means? So how do I reconcile this? There's three organs that women have that are on top of a man. We are Renav. They're four, right? They're Renav. 252. We're 248. Women are Renav, 252. Why? They have uterus. There's one I'm missing there. They have uterus. They have two ovaries, and they have fallopian tubes. Right? Now, if we understand how it works, okay, the feelings of menopause, which means the hot flashes and all that kind of stuff, that's from what organ? Ovaries, hormones. Okay, but I'm sorry, but the ovaries are what secrete the female hormones. The signals come from the brain, habibi. Okay? So now, let's go on. So the ovaries, so why does a woman feel hot flashes? What is the term of menopause medically? Primary ovarian failure. There's secondary ovarian failure. If a woman, God forbid, has to have a hysterectomy and have her ovaries out at 35 years old, what happens? She undergoes menopause at 35 years old. What is menopause? It's not just less period. It's a lot of other hormonal stuff that, well, you'll see what it looks like when your wife gets to be that age, right? You remember those days, don't you, Steve? Okay? It's a very unique time. Let's put it that way. Okay? So there's a way that women can feel older just based on, even if they don't have a uterus. Uterus is responsible for bleeding and not bleeding and carrying the baby. So how do I understand? Sarah did not have a uterus. How would you reconcile these two ideas? She didn't have a uterus. God created for her a uterus when she became Nida. But what does it mean, Hadal liot l'Sara Orah kanashim? She had the sensation of being a menopausal woman. Why? Because she had ovaries. And when her ovaries started to produce again, also part of the miracle that happened, Hashem did, that's when she felt younger. Wasn't Orah kanashim, you can understand that it's bleeding, and then you have a problem, because how do you understand en la valad? So therefore, that's how you can reconcile these two midrashim, at least from a medical standpoint. What's that?
Muslims believe in 33 when you resurrect.
33 what?
Years old.
Okay, who cares what they believe?
Where's that source from? A hadith?
No, Jesus was there.
That's great. Good extra stuff. Okay, let's continue on. Where are we here? Okay, so we understand. So from the Zohar's perspective, the im lo briti samti shamayim velo briti yomam v'layla chukot shamayim va'aretz lo samti. What brit is talked about there? Brit milah. Where do we have another proof that it's Brit Milah? It's not saying it's not Brit Melach. It's also Brit Milah. It's both. But here, the Zohar is saying it's referring to Brit Milah. There's another place where it can only be referring to Brit Milah. I'll give you the hint, David HaMelech. Huh? Why? Because he realized when he's bathing, he's naked. A person is not allowed to study Torah when they are naked or in a bathroom. It's not proper, yes? So he was upset that what? He has no brit with Hashem. Then he looked at his Brit Milah and he said, okay, I'm good. So once again, we see the brit also. Again, they're both correct. It's not that Torah is not a brit that also can mikayem the world, because if the Jewish nation stopped learning Torah, the world would cease to exist. No question about it. But vis-a-vis Eliyahu and Avi, this is what Hashem told him. No, the world still exists. Therefore, Eliyahu and Avi, you're wrong. They're still doing the Brit Milah, and now you have to go to every brit for all time. That's where. Yes. Correct. Simna yadecha tachat yerechi. Put your hand underneath my thigh, which means what? To hold the brit. Because they didn't have a Tanakh, right? How would a person do a shvuah before the Matan Torah? It has to be something that has value to the person, right? And there's only what had value to Avraham Avinu was Brit Milah. Zak, very nice. Okay, so continue on. So the Zohar says, Kol yishal l'chem haba, mai ta'ama, biglal shem shomrim habrit. She'olam mitkayem alea. The world exists because of the Brit Milah. Not just the existence of the Brit Milah, but the shmirah of the Brit Milah. That's what the Zohar is saying. Kamo shene'emar, he's going to quote the pasuk, Im lo briti yomam v'layla chukot shamayim v'aretz lo samti. Ada Yisrael sheshomrim habrit. Therefore, Jews who shomer the Brit, yesh lam chelek olam haba. You have a portion in the world to come. V'lo od ela shenikraim tzadikim. So we said when a boy has a Brit Milah, nikrat tzaddik. How do you maintain that title of tzaddik? Once the boy is above 13 years old, now he's bar onashin. Now he can get punished from betin, right? And after 20, bar onashin from olam haba. Therefore, what does he have to do? He has to be shomer the Brit. That's what the Zohar is saying. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we have teshuvah. Should there be many mistakes in the past? Is what it is. That's why the big tikkun for avonot of the Brit is sefer kal nidrei. All kinds of and I'll tell you another very interesting. I know I'm going off a little bit. There's another avon that is compared to shichvat zera lavatala from a sod point of view, and it's also a sin that a person regularly does has no chelek olam haba. Very good. Lashon hara. How do you make the connection? Beautiful. Think about the human body. Okay, okay, but good. But there's another way we connect it. 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 nares, 1 mouth. And it's in the middle. And if we go down, what's the next organ that a person has that has 1 mouth? Brit HaMa'or. There's Brit HaLashon, and there's Brit HaMa'or. And Kabbalistically, there's connections. Lashon hara is basically speech that has an improper keli. Same thing. Or shichvat zera vatalat, there is no keli, or there's lack of keli. However you want to look at that, yes? But the idea there is what? That it's very comparable to Lashon hara. That's why Lashon hara is so severe, because it's the same, shall we say, the same level of destruction. Okay, let's continue on. I think we're going to be above the line again. Yes. Okay. Ve'ata, now. Yesh lana le'orercha al ikar gadol. I have to enlighten you to another fundamental concept. Shehu yesod v'shorosh liot adam yodea kama hu godel shkol over avera. That is the yesod, the foundation and the root, that the person should know how great is anyone, how great in bad way, is a person who is sinning. I already showed you in this book. Kibiyot midat aleph dalad nun yud, the midah of aleph dalad nun yud, which is corresponding to the malchut. Thank you so much. The Shekhinah mitmalet min hamakor ha'elyon, becomes filled from the makor ha'elyon. Hanikra el chai v'tzadik. What's the makor ha'elyon? That's the yesod. That's the source of what the malchut is receiving. It's called el chai, which is the exact chapter that we're in, Shaare, that we're in this book, Shaare Orah. And tzadik, that's called the yesod, tzadik yesod olam. He mitbarechet ve'omedet bimlu'ah. She becomes blessed and is existing in her fullness. And she gives sustenance to all of the creation. Therefore, we see that the more the Malchut is receiving Shefa from the Yesod, the more the world has Kiyum, the more the world is sustained. And with happiness and all types of ta'anugim, pleasures, and all types of ma'adanim, sweets. Belief amim, but sometimes mistalek el chai mimidat Adonai. Sometimes the midah of the el chai mistalek goes away from the Aleph Daled Nun Yud. That's he nisheret yevesha. Then she is yevesha, dry, has no shefa. Rekanit, empty. V'chasera kol tuv. And she is empty of any type of goodness or abundance. Ulfichach tzarich ani lehodiacha he'ach davar zeh efshar liyot. And he's now going to explain how that works. Now, we learned from last week, just to remind ourselves, when the Malchut is not receiving Shefa from the right side or the left side, what then happens? She turns and receives the Shefa from the side, the other side, the Sitra Ahra. And then that's a time of destruction and Magefa and Dever and all that kind of stuff. Yes? Okay. Da. 1 second, let me see if there's anything in the bottom. There's nothing on the bottom for this one. Da, kimidat el chai, hanikret tzaddik. The midah of el chai that's called tzaddik. Omedet listakel v'lirot ulahashkif al bnei adam. Listakel is to gaze. Lirot is to see. Lahashkif is to, how would you say that in English? Lahashkif. Ponder. Hashkifa mimion kodshecha. It's a type of looking at with attention. Lashkif is to focus our attention through sight. Okay? Again, it could also be ponder in modern Hebrew. Al bnei adam. Okay? Ubirota bnei adam shem oskim b'Torah. When the Malchut sees, when the Midav Aleph Daled Nun Yud sees that people, Jewish people, are studying Torah, not studying, oskim b'Torah. What is oskim b'Torah? Toiling in the Torah. Uv mitzvot, and in mitzvot. Dehem hafetzim letaher atzmam, and they have a goal to purify themselves. Ulit naheg b'taora unkiyut, and to behave in a way of holiness, of purity, and cleanliness. Not cleanliness specifically with a shower, cleanliness of the midot, like in the Mesilat Yesharim. Azai midat tzaddik mitpashetet umitrahevet umitmalet mikol minei shefa v'atzilut milamala. Then the midah of the tzaddik receives all types of abundance from above, and then what happens? Laharik al midat Adonai. Laharik. What is laharik? Arik harbi. What did we read last week's parasha? 2 weeks parasha. Vayarek et hanichav. What does that mean? He emptied. Now, we had a discussion over there about what is hanichav. Just to bring that on. Remember, the rabbi disagreed. He didn't disagree. He said, I didn't hear their parish before. So what does it mean, vayaret hanichav? So you look at the Gemara. What does it say? Hanichav or his students, the ones he educated. Yes? Not disagreeing with the Talmud. But how do we understand that word? Chet nun kaf. Is it used for education anywhere in the Torah? That's not in the Torah. That's in the Tanakh. Person Chanoch. So whatever that meant, what did he do? We have to think what that means. What is so? If we understand, yeah, go ahead. If I'm not mistaken, the word Chanoch, as far as education is concerned, does not appear in the Torah. Okay, good. That means to commemorate or to inaugurate. That doesn't mean to educate.
God walked with, and then he ended up.
The enenu.
And then he was gone.
Okay, that's his name. But we're not going to be able to learn from a name what the word means. When we figure out what the word means, then we'll understand the midav Chanoch. But from the person, we can't figure it out because the Torah doesn't tell anything about Chanoch other than the fact that he was a good guy, right? And he was taken early.
Right, taken early.
Why? So that he wouldn't be influenced.
He would listen to other people.
Which means up until he was 345, 365, I think it's 345, he basically was tzaddik. Hashem took him before he became influenced by the others. So we can't learn. What do we learn from Chanoch? So What is Vayarek Chanichav? If I'm not mistaken, that's the first time that word appears. So what is the meaning? So I said it means a sheath that the sword is in. Vayarek Chanichav. What does that mean? He emptied his sheath. That's from if you look at that without going to, because when the rabbis are coming to chinuch, I'm suggesting that's from a drasha point of view. That is not from a pishat point of view. Because nowhere in the Torah is the word chanoch used as education, right? And maybe education, so I suggest that what is education? It's giving direction, guidance to people who need guidance. Chanoch lenar pidarko. When I have a sword and I want to put it away, you have to put it someplace where you're not going to cut yourself, right? So the sheath of the sword, what do? You guide the sword into the sheath. What is Chanukat HaBayit? Why does a person do Chanukat HaBayit? To say this beautiful thing that I own, that I'm building, what do? From the beginning, you are establishing, you're giving a direction to the use of that house is going to be for Torah, mitzvot, and ma'asim tovim. So the word chan, that's why I don't think it's incorrect to say chanichav is the sheath, because that's where the sword. And then from here we learn that just like a sheath gives a direction to the sword when you're putting it back, similarly the word chanu means to educate, which means give direction.
It's not something it doesn't move, it doesn't take action.
Okay, if I have a sword that's say 3-4 feet long, and I want to carry it with me, I can either carry it like this all the time, and then people think I'm fighting. How does a person store a sword when he's not needing to kill people with it? You put it in the sheath.
Right. It's not giving direction. Your hand is doing it.
Oh no! But again, if you think about it's a space. There's a specific space in the sheath, right, where the sword is directed in. Your hand is the pushing the force, but it's your hand is not guiding it in. The sheath already has a beit kibul for the sword, just like a holster for a gun. The holster is what you put the gun in, and it holds the gun in a safe way while you're not needing to use it. Anyway, that's my idea. Could be wrong. I don't know. I haven't found any friends, mefarshim, that say what I say. So for all intents and purposes, that could be wrong or it could be right. I don't know. Okay. So anyway, so let's continue on the sefer here. Okay. La'arik amidat. So what is the purpose of the yesod? Is to empty, la'arik, to empty into the malchut. K'dei latet sachar tov lo'otam hamachzikim b'Torah. And what is the malchut going to do with that shefa? It's going to give that shefa to those who are learning Torah, doing mitzvot and ma'asim tovim, which means those who are causing the shefa to come from the shamayim through the yesod into the malchut are the ones who are going to receive that abundance. Umetarim atzmam, and the ones who purify themselves. Therefore, we see the entire world receives bracha because of those tzaddikim. The gamidat aleph dalad nun yun mitbarechet al yedehem, and also the midah of aleph dalad nun yun. So it's the work of the tzaddikim through their learning and through mitzvot and ma'asim tovim that draws shefa to the yesod, which then projects all that shefa to the malchut, and then the malchut distributes it out. Zeu sod zechet tzaddik livracha. And this is what it means when we say Zecher Tzadik Livracha. What is Zecher Tzadik Livracha? The memory of a righteous person is for bracha. Okay? You have time? Go on. You have time? Okay, good. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the bottom again. No, it's still in Shaare Orah, and the Rabbi Gika tell you. No, you do what you got to do. Sam, you can be lift home? You have a car?
Yeah.
Okay. We're good.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You got it. Have a wonderful day. A wonderful day.
And I'll pick up.
Pick up where we left off. You got it.
Which I love so much.
Baruch Hashem. Okay, let's continue on. V'im chas v'shalom b'nei adam metamim atzman. If God forbid people cause themselves to be tamei, impure, umitrahakim min Torah min mitzvot, and they distance themselves from the Torah mitzvot. Ve'osin resha ve'avel ve'hamas, and they do evil and resha and evil. There must be a difference between those two words. Resha is criminal behavior, Avel is evil, and Hamas is destruction or robbery, depending on Rashi. Azai midat tzaddik omedet labit ulistakel lashkif ma'asehen. Then the midah that tzaddik, the yesod, is looking at their deeds. V'chirot ha'bnei adam shemetamim atzmam, and when they see people that are causing themselves to be defiled, mo'asim betorah mitzvot, and they are disgusted by the Torah and by the mitzvot. They osim ava v'hamas, and they do evil and they do Hamas. Azai midat tzaddik mitasefet umitkaneset. Then what does the midah that tzaddik do? She gathers and she stores, meaning doesn't distribute. What do we know about Yosef? Correct. Why was he called Tzaddik? One reason is because he resisted Bat, the daughter of Potiphar, right? What's the other reason Yosef is called Tzaddik? The wife of Potiphar. What's the reason, another reason why he's called Tzaddik? Good. What else? What else is the role of the Tzaddik? We just read. What did we just read? That when there's evil in the world, what does the Tzaddik do? Gathers and mitkanes. What did Yosef do in Mitzrayim? Paro had a dream. It didn't take a genius to figure out what the dream meant. What was the difference between Yosef and all the Khartoumim? Why didn't anybody in Egypt go to Paro and tell them the meaning of the dream? The meaning of the dream was pretty straightforward. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. It wasn't rocket science there. Why didn't anybody, the en poter atam leFaro? No one told Paro what his dream meant. Why not? There was no solution. You do not go to the king with a problem that's going to be causing a big problem and have no solution. Yosef was the one who brought them a solution. That's why he wasn't afraid to tell Paro what the meaning of the dream was, because he had a solution. What was the solution? During the 7 years of plenty, we're going to gather and store the grain. Before that, the Egyptians didn't know how to store grain. Why not? They had food all the time. There was never a famine before. The famine always existed outside of Egypt. Egypt had the Nile. The fact that there was going to be a famine in Egypt, that was a first-time event. So they had no idea how to store grain, whereas Yosef, who came from Canaan, and Canaan is always a land that always had trouble with water, they had to learn how to store the grain. So Yosef was able to teach them how to store the grain. Why also? Because he was the midah of tzaddik. Mit asefet u mit kaneset. If you think about it, why was he called Yosef? Rachel named him Yosef. Asaf Elohim et cherpati. Hashem gathered my difficulties or my anger or whatever you want to look at it. Right? He gathered it. Meaning what? Yosef is named for the word osif, to gather. Continue on. Umistaleket the mala, and then the Yesod holds and withdraws and doesn't give shefa to the malchut. Vaz yifasku kol hatzinorat v'hamshachot, and then all the pipes that lead shefa to the world are emptied. Why? Because the malchut is no longer receiving shefa from above, because the Yesod is seeing that the world is being improper. V'nisheret midat Adonai ke'eretz yevesha rekanit v'chaserem kol tuv. And then the midav aleph dalad nun yun is yevesha, is dry and empty, and without missing all tuv. Zeu sod, and this is the sod, ki mipnei hara'a ne'esaf hatzadik. Wow. Because of the evil, the tzaddik is taken. So the simple meaning of that is when something bad's going to happen to the world, what happens? That tzaddik is taken first. Where's the first place we see that? It's not Peshat. There was a delay in the Mabul for 7 days. Why was there a delay in the Mabul for 7 days? For the death of Metushelach. Metushelach died, and they did the Shiv'ah for Metushelach. And then the Mabul started on right after the Shiv'ah. Why did he die? He died, what we just read. Before the evil comes, Ne'esaf HaTzadik. Some say that's in order to do kapara for the generation, so when the evil is going to come, it's not going to be so bad. Others say it's so that tzaddik shouldn't have to participate and experience the evil that's around. The only time a righteous person is going to have to experience the evil around is when? Noach. When he had opportunity to try to correct people and he didn't correct them. Then what happens? Then he lives through the evil because he has to see the fact that he wasn't matzliach or didn't make an effort strong enough. He has to experience the destruction, but he's not allowed to look at it. Avraham, since he did something about it, he didn't experience the destruction because he wasn't living in Sodom, but he was able to look at it. Why? Because he prayed for them. So here it says, so the simple meaning is that tzaddik dies before something bad happens. This way he doesn't have to experience. Based on what we just read, when there is evil in the world, what happens? The Yesod holds back. She doesn't. She just gathers shefa, which means whatever shefa is coming from above, the Yesod holds it. And the Malchut gets nothing. Ushlomo alav hashlom tzavach ve'amar. And Shlomo HaMelech in Kohelet said, Yesh tzaddik oved b'tzidko ve'yesh rasha ma'arich bera'ato. There is a righteous person that is lost because of his righteousness. That's the example we just said. Because he's righteous, he's taken before the calamity. Ve'yesh rasha ma'arich bera'ato. And there's a rasha that also increases and becomes more evil when bad things are happening. Okay. Let's see if there's any. By changing the behavior. By Torah mitzvot ma'asim tovim. That's how you, it's not, you open, and the Malchut is always ready to receive. How do you make sure the shefa is coming from the right direction? That's the Torah mitzvot ma'asim tovim. Okay. Okay, let's look at Nun Aleph here. Metami'im atzman. Katav Rabbeinu sheshlosha dvarim mitkalkelim et midat yesod. There are 3 things that mekalkel, that disrupt the midah of the yesod. Which is the job of the yesod is what? To basically to give over all of the sustenance from above directly to focus it into the malchut. What's the kilkul of the yesod? What is the kilkul of the yesod? That's when instead of it focusing it and then transmitting, it focuses and holds it. It's almost like the Yesod becomes the female. It's gathering and holding it and not giving it to the one below. That's worth a discussion in and of itself. That's worth a discussion in and of itself. She becomes a receptacle. The Yesod, the male, becomes a receptacle for what's above. Wow. Why am I thinking about the Rashi? Wow. Maybe there's a Rashi at Matan Torah that says, Ko toma lebet Yaakov taged livnei Yisrael. This is what you should speak to the daughters of Israel, Bet Yaakov, right? There's the daughters of Israel. Ko toma lebet Yaakov taged livnei Yisrael. This is what you should instruct Bnei Israel. So Rashi says, when Moshe Rabbeinu was coming to teach the Torah, Hashem told him, first you go to the ladies. And you speak to them, kotomar. What is amirah? Softly, gently, nicely, not harshly. Speak to the ladies softly. And what's going to happen? They're going to receive it. Bet Yisrael, they're going to receive it. That's the ladies. They're going to receive it. When they receive it, now you can go to the men and give them things that are tough like sinews. Because once the women are on board, the men will, of course, be on board. That's what the pasuk says. So I gave a drasha once. This is in a synagogue. I'm not going to say where. And I basically said this was during Seudah Shlishit. I think it was during the Yamim Noraim. It was the Shabbat Shuvah. And I said, the men here behave like women. Why? Because you've already had a couple of rabbis come and go. When the rabbis tell you that you're not behaving properly, what do? You get upset. No. First of all, the rabbi is supposed to be telling you, Taged libnei Yisrael. They're supposed to be telling you what you're doing wrong. If you need soft, if you need amirah, if you need a nice soft approach, what does that mean? You're taking on the midah of the women. It's either you're a guy or you're not. They didn't like that. That's okay. Wasn't trying to win a popular. They didn't like it. They weren't. But I wasn't winning a popularity contest. So think about what that is. Here is the midah of the yesod that's supposed to be masculine, but when the yesod sees that around to receive the receptacles are rishayim, are bad, it holds it and doesn't give it over. Just thinking maybe there's a connection to. I have to think about it some more. Okay. So we see betorah mitzvot osim yichud ben kuchabrichu shchintei. How does this work? When a person is doing mitzvot, what are we doing? Yichud kuchabrichu ushchintei. What is kuchabrichu? Zeranpin, the 6 sfirot, which the bottom of that is the yesod. Shchintei is the malchut. When a person does a mitzvah, what is he doing? He's making a yichud ben kuchabrichu shchintei. What does that mean? Shefa is being drawn from the kuchabrichu to shchintei. That's the yichud. Yichud is the connection. What's the connection between the yesod and the malchut? Shefa. Well, what we discussed a couple of weeks ago. There's the tzaddik, there's the tzedek, and what's the connection? The tzedakah. Continuing on. Ukishimitrahakim min Torah, and when they distance themselves from the Torah, chas v'shalom v'amitzvot, marhikim et hayesod. They also cause there to be distance, because if the l'shem yichud kuchabrichu, if there's a connection, a unification of the kuchabrichu shchintei, when a person is doing mitzvot, then when a person is doing avanot, what is he doing? He's causing a pirud. He's causing a separation between kuchabrichu ushchintei. Bet Rasha shemashpia shefa shel hayesod shelo bimkomo haraui. Wow. What is a Rasha? So he used 3 terms here. He used 3 terms. He used, one second, Rasha, which means what? That he's doing shefa to a place that is not ra'ui, ba'arayot, with forbidden women. Uvmase erve onan, the onanism, which is erve onan, which we're going to read in a couple of parashot. Asu ra be'enei Hashem. Where's the word ra used? Over there, by erve onan, when would not impregnate Tamar. What does it say? And he spilled the seed on the ground. Ra be'enei Hashem. He did evil. Ra in the eyes of God. Ra milshon ra'ua. It's from the son of ra'ua. What is ra'ua? Shaky. Shekil kilu et hashpa'ah shel hayesod. Because what they did is they messed up the foundation. Lo bimkomo hara'ui l'hod l'toladot. Not to put it in a place where it can give birth to next generations. Next, begezel. What is gezel? The Hamas and destruction. Shemamono shel adam hu hashefa shakadosh baruch ten lo lechol echad b'mamono. So what is mammon? What is the problem with thievery and robbery? Mammon of the person is the shefa that Hashem gives everybody. The person's income, the person's ability to make a living. This is shefa that comes from Hashem. Lefi tafkido be'avodat Hashem l'tikun olam. According to his tafkid in the world, in correcting the world. That's the parnasah that a person gets. Ve'havayevanim pashtu yetehem b'mamonam u'b'bnotehem. And the Yevanim in the time of Chanukah, what does it say? They put their hands with their money and with their daughters. Shiratzu lekalkel et shefa kedusha be'am Yisrael. The goal of the Yevanim was to mess up this abundant shefa that the Jewish people were receiving. Ukshadam gozel, when a person is stealing, hu mishanet shefa shenatana borei yitbarach. He's changing the shefa. When a person is stealing something, what does that mean? He's not entitled to it. He's taking the shefa that belongs to that person and taking it for himself. That's called gezel. He's taking it from the place where it belongs, which is the person who he stole from, and taking it to himself, which is the person that doesn't belong, which means he's the improper keli for that shefa. That's what gezel is from the sod point of view. Dor hamabul, just like the dor hamabul, the generation of the flood. Shekil kalu ba'arayot v'hamas, that they made mistakes, they made sins with arayot and Hamas. That's according to the opinions that are there. Yes, it wasn't Avodah Zarah that caused the destruction of the world with the Mabul. It was Arayot and Hamas. Ki mala'ah ha'aretz Hamas mipenehem, because the world was filled with Hamas. V'chata'am shekilkilu b'yesod. What was their mistake? They caused the disruption in the Yesod. V'ishpiu et ha'shefa lekachot hara v'klipot. And they caused the shefa that was supposed to be going to the Malchut instead to go to other places. Rakanti Sham, like the Rakanti explains, he's an Italian rabbi who gave Perush on the Torah that's almost all sod. Because of their sin, the land was full of Hamas. And she had sustenance from the Tum'ah, that's the Aretz. That's what we said about the Malchut. When she doesn't receive from the Shefa from the proper place, she receives from an improper place. Tahat kohota kedusha, instead of the strength of the powers or the from the Shefa of the kedusha. We'll do one more and we'll stop. Okay. Midat tzaddik mitasefet to mitkaneset. We said that the midah of the tzaddik has the ability to gather and to hold, to mitkanes. Yes. Ita b'Zohar, it's taught in the Zohar. In Parashat Tazria, tzaddik ne'evad lo ketiv, ela tzaddik oved. It's written, it's not that tzaddik is lost, in the pasuk we quoted before. Yesh tzaddik oved b'tzidko, it says. It doesn't say yesh tzaddik ne'evad, that is lost. It says oved. So the Zohar is going to teach and explain why is the difference, why is it not Hebrew ne'evad, which would be more proper Hebrew based on the way we explained it before. Deha lo ithabar b'sihara, that it didn't connect, it wasn't properly connected. Shat tzaddik oved is oved, which means aleph vav bet dalu, which means is lost. L'sirat ha'malchut v'nesaf lemala, and she's gathered above, which means the malchut is missing the sfira of the yesod. Why? Because the yesod is not giving shefa to the malchut. Then yichud v'chibur, and then there is no yichud, there's no unification, and there's no connection. Ben elyonim v'tachtonim, there's a break, there's a pirud between the upper worlds, which is kuchabrichu, and the lower world, which is shechintei. Bi'er berakanti, the Rakanti explained the parashat Tetzaveh. Biyot adam pogem evarav lemata, when a person damages his evarim, his limbs in this world through sins. Different sins cause different damages to different evarim. How does that work? Right, there's 248 limbs and 365 sinews and veins, right? So when a person is negligent in the performance of his mitzvot aseh, what's happening? He's causing a damage to one of the 248 limbs. Why not? Absolutely. Absolutely. Kavyachol mekatzetz dugmato lemala. Kavyachol, it's as if, what is he doing? He's cutting off that limb in the shamayim. That's a tough one. Rakanti is powerful. I mean, whoa. V'inyan hakitzutzu, and now he's going to explain what is the kitzutz, the cutting off. Shenit kabetz oto ever betoch havaya hanikra ayin. That ever that's supposed to be existing in the in the image in the shamayim, in the person's dmut in the shamayim, is gathered up to the ayin, which means it's brought to the Ein Sof. Ukilu oto ever haser lemala, and it's as if the limb is missing. It's not really missing. It's subsumed within the Ein Sof, which means it's not showing itself in the Shamayim from a spiritual point of view. Hahu adin ki mipnei hara ne'esaf tzad tzadik. This is what it says, meaning what? Pimnei hara ne'esaf tzadik. Because of the ra'ah, because of the evil deeds, the tzaddik is gathered. Ne'esaf mamash, gathered mamash. That's what the Rakanti says. Meaning what? Gathered to the ayin. Uchtiv, and ayin is non-existence as far as the spiritual created world. That's what it means, it doesn't exist. Uchtiv tzur yiladecha teshi, and it's written in Ha'azinu, the rock made you weak, created you weak, or gave you birth as weakness. Kavyachol mitashim koach shel mala. Kavyachol, it's as if they weaken the koach of mala. Wow. Wow. That reminds me. When Moshe Rabbeinu by the Meraglim, if you look at the difference between Chet HaEgel and by the Meraglim, by the Chet HaEgel, he brings all 13 principles. El Rachum v'Chanun Erech Habayim Erech Hesed v'Emet. By the Meraglim, he only has 7. Why only 7? It says, Tashash Kocho Kenekeva. That his ability to pray was weakened like a nekeva. Maybe that's a remiss to what we talked about before, that when there's bad in the world, the yesod becomes like a nekeva storing, which means Moshe Rabbeinu was unable to give all the Yud Gimel Midot. He only only prayed with 7. Another idea, perhaps. Okay, let's continue on. So we see over here, the person is created in the Tzelem Elokim, and his Evarim. What is the purpose of his limbs? The purpose of the limbs is to be mekabel, to be a utensil for midot elionot, for the upper midot, like a merkava, which is utensil for things that are above. Ukmo hanhagat hayesod betachtonim, like the behavior of this sod in this world. Kishehu mashpia, when the yesod is mashpia, is influencing, hu mitpashet uchshenu mashpia, hu nesaf v'chaser. So when the yesod is giving shefa, what is he's mashpia, mitpashet. When the yesod is not giving shefa, it is ne'esaf, he's gathering, he's gathering. This is how the pe'ulah of the person's Tzelem Elokim in the Shamayim is also missing. And a person who causes damage in the midah of the yesod, banav pegumim. Oh, that's what we talked about yesterday. We said yesterday that what? That the Gemara Masechet Nida brings up 9 children that are spiritually defective. And it all has to do with the thoughts of the parents during conception. So meaning what? When they're properly thinking, then the child that comes has a spiritual deficit. And when a person is pogem in the midah of the yesod, then his children chas v'shalom are pigumim, are damaged. And his onesh is going to live in poverty. And he's missing life in the service of God. Shirhik mikor hashefa, he distanced himself from the source of the shefa. Habracha ve'achayut me'atzmo, he distanced himself from the source of shefa and blessing and life. Kumo shebi'er nefesh chaim, like the nefesh chaim explained, bifgo mehad mikochotav ve'evarav ayideh het'o asher hata, when a person causes damage to one of his limbs by his sin that he made, gam ken hapegam magia lefi shosho, the pegam goes to the shoresh of that limb, to the root of that limb. leoto alam, to that particular world, that koach elyon, and the force from Shamayim, hamechaven negdo, that is parallel to it in the Shamayim. Besidre shiur koma kavyachol, like in the shiur koma, the concept of the fact that there's a tzelem elokim, which means we are created by tzelem elokim, and that we have a spiritual dmut, which is similar to the dmut of lamala, with the worlds. Yes, our spiritual. That's why Adam is olam katan. We have a physical body that has a dmut similar to the spiritual body. That's not physical, of course. That's spiritual. To either destroy it or to make destruction, or to bring it down, or to damage it, or to weaken the light that he's receiving Shamayim. Ayen Sham Barucha. Not a good place to stop. Not a good place to stop. Let's see if it's going to get better on the next one. No. All right, so let's try to end on a good note. So, of course, the goal is not to is to understand that from the negative here. The goal is to bring shefa from the Shamayim, and through shefa through Torah mitzvot to ma'asim tovim in this world. What he does is he brings shefa from the Shamayim, and any limbs that he's using in the performance of the mitzvot, there's increased abundance to that limb in the Shamayim, and it has more existence as opposed to what we just discussed, if it's the other way. All right, we'll stop here. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. Oh my.